no tenemos esta directiva, esta regulación específica, tiene sentido desde un punto de vista doméstico, desde un punto de vista del Estado español, una regulación que diga, bueno, oiga, usted será tercero de confianza si reúne determinados requisitos, ya sea un operador o sea un consultant. Me gustaría saber la visión de Cisco Sapena y muy particularmente también la visión de Mr. Steen and Mr. Robinson from UK and from the United States. Thank you.
My default answer to any suggestion of more European regulation is no. My experience of more regulation equals poorer quality and more cost. So the idea of standardizing anything right across Europe. I did see one of the Mobile World keynotes yesterday was someone calling for European harmonization of data protection. It was a chief executive of a German company, and I think we did that about 15 years ago, and it gives an example of how well that works. So I think that the kind of solution on a country-by-country basis, recognizing the history of the individual legal system in that country, probably is based on this kind of approach, is probably a strength rather than a European fudge, as we would say in England.
I'm really not sure what the question was, but I have a couple of comments on these two gentlemen here. I have seen the TruePhone presentation at least 10 times around the world. And this is the first time that I now understand what you do. and I have to tell you, it is quite important. I have a UK number on my phone, and I have an American number on my phone. And to have, if the price is right, to have a local number and have the phone automatically do that for you as you get off the plane is very interesting to me, and I will be talking to your people in America. There is no question about it. And then the second thing on the SMS, I don't really care about SMS. What I do care about is the certification. And in particular, my clients are very large companies. They send an order in to AT&T or Verizon or Sprint or BT, and they don't get a response back on when the FOC date is for the installation. And it may be weeks. And I see an advantage here because of service level agreements to make sure that there is a certified delivery of that email so that we can claim 1 month free or 2 months free or whatever if in fact AT&T or Verizon doesn't respond. So I want to talk to your Miami people when I get back to America. So I think that is a unique product. I haven't seen that anywhere in the world, and I travel all over the world all the time. I am interested in your services. I think you have a winner there.
Thank you.
I would like to do a comment. Yo diría que vamos a ver, el problema está en que la legislación siempre va por detrás de la tecnología y eso no hay forma de pararlo, va a ser siempre así. Y por otro lado, y yo estoy bastante de acuerdo con el comentario de Craig de que tenemos que ir a un mundo lo más pragmático posible y con la máxima aplicación de sentido común. La verdad es que el tema este del tercero de confianza, del guardar los registros de las comunicaciones, con todo lo que está pasando del Wikileaks, del Snowden, de la NSA y de todo este tipo de cosas, la verdad es que da para un debate. Y el uso que hace Facebook de los perfiles de la gente y el uso que hace la información, y el señor de WhatsApp ha insistido estos días clarísimamente que ellos no guardan nada y que no registran nada y que lo único que hacen es transmitir mensajes. Realmente, vamos a ver, estamos afrontando una tecnología nueva, una situación completamente nueva y tenemos que ir avanzando, pero yo creo que lo peor que podríamos hacer es hacerlo de, y voy a poner dos ejemplos provocadores, es lo de la energía nuclear o lo del Concorde, ¿no? Que el Concorde hace ruido y entonces no le dejamos volar. Bueno, vamos a hacer el Concorde 2.0, vamos a hacer el Concorde 3.0 y ya harán menos ruido, y vamos a hacer las centrales nucleares, pues en vez de seguir con la 1.0 como Fukushima, pues diseñadas hace 50 años, pues ¿por qué no nos ponemos a hacer la 2.0, la 3.0 y la 4.0? Yo creo que tenemos que seguir avanzando y aprendiendo a la medida que avanzar, pero sobre todo lo que tenemos que ser es tremendamente pragmáticos y aplicar el sentido común. Yo también, y antes de pasar al café, querría hacer un poco un resumen, y yo diría que aquí hay dos temas clave, ¿no? Uno está claro que en estos momentos sigue la locura total en los precios, y que hay que aplicar aquello de que busque, compare y elija. Y después ha habido un punto en que todo el mundo ha insistido mucho, que es en el tema de la atención al cliente. Todo el mundo está de acuerdo, todos los ponentes están de acuerdo en que unos intentan presentarlo como su punto fuerte y los otros como el punto débil de sobre todo las grandes empresas o las empresas tradicionales. Y yo creo que a todos los niveles el tema de atención a clientes es realmente un punto clave, que se está tratando muy mal a los clientes en términos generales, que los centros de atención a cliente, los call centers, están absolutamente superados. Después en la segunda mesa vamos a tener ponentes que están trabajando en estas tecnologías, y que cuesta mucho innovar, cuesta mucho el cambio, hay que ser mucho más proactivo, y la verdad es que en estos momentos las generaciones jóvenes están pasando muy por delante de las empresas, que muchas están quedando absolutamente bloqueadas, y más en la situación de crisis actual. Si no hay ninguna otra pregunta...
Yo Agustín, quisiera hacer una pequeña puntualización. ¿Vale? Evidentemente también estoy de acuerdo que la tecnología va mucho más adelantado que una legislación explícita, pero no olvidemos que también muchas veces el legislador intenta hacerlo con un espíritu, y lo que hemos de hacer, y a veces nos olvidamos, es que muchas de estas nuevas tecnologías podemos incluirlas dentro del espíritu con el cual se hizo una legislación hace muchos años. ¿De acuerdo? Con lo cual, bueno, quizás está bien y tampoco es malo el que se especifique, porque muchas veces si no está muy especificado no lo acabamos de entender, en los cuales me incluyo a veces, pero a veces también olvidamos que no acabamos de interpretarlo dentro del espíritu con el cual se legisló hace muchos años, ¿de acuerdo? Y que a veces pues tendríamos que imbuirnos un poco todos, tanto los de un sentido como los otros, dentro de ese espíritu que permite que pues un señor juez pueda enfrentarse a una tecnología absolutamente nueva con unas leyes hechas del año pasado, y aún así intentar sacar pues una sentencia justa.
Teníamos una última pregunta aquí.
Thank you. I am Jaume Fortuny. I'm member of the board of the Telecom and Engineers College and also international consultant. I have a question for Dave and also for Craig. It's concerning this drop round by price that you comment. When we are talking at the public scope, it works in the same way in your countries. It really works, this drop down by price, or there are other hidden issues that you have to take into consideration when you are trying to make any kind of consultancy?
There can always be hidden issues, and that is the purpose, to have the consultant in the negotiation to make sure that the circuit prices are what they quote, and they aren't adding other little things like monitoring and network probes and those kinds of other issues into the bid after the fact. But the numbers I gave you were absolutely accurate on the drop in price from the initial response to the RFP to the final bid and contract. So it dropped by 50%.
I would agree entirely. As we run procurements, as we go through each round, it's amazing simply by asking for more how much you can get. I would say one thing that, but I'm sure you do as well, but in the first round when we have the bids, the first thing we do is get the supplier to explain everything they've included and to talk us through that. And it's amazing the things that they've included which we never asked for. And there is a real problem that they've copied and pasted the proposal from something else, or things get included as standard, or there's a little tick in the system that includes services that the client doesn't want. So our first round is just to get rid of all the rubbish that the clients never asked for, and then absolutely, as we go around and reduce the number of suppliers, and absolutely when the incumbent supplier is out, then you see a big drop in cost. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the opponents to be here and share his knowledge and his expertise. Thank you very much. There is now a coffee break in a room just in the other side. Let's begin with the second. This is, don't worry about the slide. This is the slide, okay? Clouds. So the second panel, it's about clouds. Really, I don't know who chose the word clouds to talk about something about technology. I can imagine why, no? Why we are talking about clouds, no? Because in the old times, when we paint a network, we always paint a cloud. Say cloud is so. But I think it's really a horrible word. It's completely something like not marketing friendly, perhaps. I don't know if this is a good idea or not. Clouds is a horrible word because clouds are about storms, are about problems, are negative. Yes, they are Americans. George say it was an American guy who defined clouds, no? So yes, but what happened? What happened when you come to understand, or you come to go inside a cloud? No, because this is what happens. Then you find fog, and you see nothing. Like in the picture, of course. And this is the reason why we have organized this panel, to try to understand what is a cloud, what advantage it has, what risk must be avoided, because there are different types of clouds. For example, you can see a cumulonimbus or a cirrostratus. It's clear there are two types of clouds completely different. Okay, so there are private and public clouds. There are on-premise solutions. There are solutions on the cloud as a service. So we can do investments, or we can pay per use. What about privacy? This also has been, it's a topic of the first panel. And one of the key questions, in my opinion, are clouds standard or can be customized? It's cloud a commodity, and it's the companies can find in a standard cloud can solve their problems or not. Really, we are talking where is your data center located. No? So and for this panel we so you need a strategy, and this is what we will talk about. Okay. And we had also an amazing panel with two consultants, and two vendors, and one from a very big carrier, and I don't know if I am sure that they don't want to say that they are an incumbent carrier, because they are not. They are a new carrier, perhaps a spin out of an incumbent. But we have a big name. So in the previous panel we had new carriers. We have now a big name, so we are open to all the ideas, and all the players are invited to be present in our sessions. We also have an innovative vendor, and we have also two talent and very prestigious consultants. One from United States and the other one from Europe. So two different visions. Okay, and let me introduce our first member of the panel, Byron Battles. Byron is past president of our association. He is based in Washington, D.C. I want to tell them he had a lot of problems with the storm this week because when he left 2 weeks ago, Washington, he was under a fall of snow, and today I think there is another fall of snow in Washington. So, do you think, Byron, that clouds are always and storms, or how you can manage all this? Since an American point of view, and always under at this winter, always under the snow.
Pardon. We are under the snow, but with a lot of clouds come silver linings, and I'm in Barcelona, not in Washington, D.C. What I wanted to do is talk about, I don't have slides, that's just just me. What I wanted to do today was just go over a few things that we've discovered in looking at clouds both ways now. From working with clients, large and small, and just define a couple of things. First of all, cloud is a very nebulous term, and we try to define our terms before we get into it. When we talk about cloud, we're talking about your multi-tenant type of offering that basically every customer gets the same thing. The service providers are providing it. It's on their platform. They provide the features and the functions. They pretty much set the price. It's less customizable, but it's operating expense only. You pay as you use it. You pay on a monthly recurring charge on a per-seat basis. But you also upgrade when the service provider is ready to upgrade. If you need a feature tomorrow, but the upgrade schedule is not until next year, you'll wait until next year to get that feature. When we define hosted, this is a little bit more customizable, number one, but it presents a unique instance of the customer's system, either on a virtual server or on a physical server, and that server could be located on the customer's premise. It could be located in a third-party data center, or it could be located in the service provider's data center. So you've got cloud, which is more general, hosted, which is more customizable and unique to your organization. In terms of support, again, very, very fluid. It could be all vendor, it could be all customer, or it could be a mix of vendors and customers that are supporting this solution. And if you do go with one that's more, that is on your own premise or on a vendor's premise, you might have a working lease. So it could still be operating expense only. You just have a buyout option at the end of the lease, which is usually 5 years. So with the cloud, a lot of new vendors and service providers have appeared. And what we found is that this is very critical to understand the company that is providing the service. Is it a reputable, well-established, well-equipped company, or is it some guy with a server in his garage? What we've done is developed a short checklist that we can talk about more offline, but first of all, experience. Do they have references that you can check in your line of business and with the services and capabilities that you need? What's the architecture? Is it, do they have geo-redundancy? Do they have diverse routing into their facilities? What's their failover process? Do they have a test plan? And if they do have a test plan, what have the results been? And they need to be able to share that with you. We had one client, everything looked good on paper, but they had multiple outages in 1 month. And the test plan, the failover plan did not work. So that's a big area. What engine, call processing and call control engine are they using? Is it proprietary? Is it a commercially available one? And is it scalable to the size that you'll need? In most cases, for smaller customers, that's not an issue, but for larger customers with multinational locations and thousands of phones, it's a big issue. So you need to understand what the scalability is. Again, what's their upgrade policy and what's their maintenance policy in terms of outages? Will they give you advance notice? And what happens if you're a 24-hour operation? How does the provider cover the outage? Do they switch over to another location? You need to understand that from the service providers. One of the recurring themes, and both Craig and Dave mentioned those earlier, is to know your requirements. And not just the technical requirements, but the business requirements. And nobody will know that, or should know that, as well as the customer themselves. What we find, however, in a lot of cases is the customers don't know what their requirements are. They're so busy with day-to-day operations, they haven't thought about where do we want to be in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years. So there is a tremendous amount of work that needs to go into discovering what the business requirements are. You shouldn't be talking technology necessarily, because for most people in the organization, and my wife reminds me that the telephone is not the center of anybody else's universe except mine, you need to have a tool that helps them do their job better. It needs to be simple, it needs to be reliable, it needs to work every time, and then they can do their job and move on. So our job is to identify what those business requirements are and interpret those, like the ladies are doing back in the booth, into the appropriate technical solutions. Then we can go out, and the better we know our requirements, the better questions we can ask of the vendors to make sure that we're getting exactly what we need. With the hosted, there is the managed service agreement, and that is a very, very important part. This is the unique instance that the agreement has to be good for both parties. The organization that goes either with hosted or cloud many times thinks, I'll throw it over the fence, I'll never have to worry about it again, and that is simply not true, particularly in the hosted situation. So you need to understand what the managed service agreement will be, the MSA, and that's negotiable. In a cloud situation, it's pretty standard. You're not going to have much flexibility, and invariably it's going to favor the service provider. But in a managed service agreement, you can negotiate. It has to be good for both parties, and what used to be a technical operation now becomes a contract management operation. You need to understand what the scope is based on your requirements. You need to have regular meetings, either scheduled or ad hoc, and talk about what the scope is. There needs to be a candid dialogue. We had one client that had a managed service contract for 20 years. When it started out, the price was this much and the scope was this much. Over the years, the client asked, well, can we do this? And the service provider, in view of being a good team player, said, yes, we can do this. So 20 years later, the price is here, the scope is here. So when the service provider came back and said, we need you to pay for this, there was unhappiness. Another big area to consider is your exit strategy. What if it doesn't work out? How do you transfer your data, your capabilities, your integrations to another service provider? Where is your data being held? How do you make sure that it's secure? How do you make sure that it all gets transferred to the new provider? Not a fun topic, but it's one that you have to consider, and if it's the worst case, then you have to be able to get out of the agreement. Finally, in terms of customization, you need to know what the requirements are, and there are certain steps that a customization will go through. Again, more in the hosted situation than the cloud situation. You need to understand what the concept is. What are you trying to do? And this is flow charting out what the process is and figuring out where the problems might be, where the integration points might be, and understanding that with the business units that are involved. You need to design it. You need to have flexibility. And we went through this with a service provider that had an online incident management system, and the call center needed it to work a certain way. And they said, oh yeah, we can do that. Well, do you have references? Crickets. So you have to have the flexibility to do that. You need to have the proof of concept, and then you need to test it first for the proof of concept, and then test it under duress. In other words, simulate the number of calls that you will get in production. If it may work great in a test environment, but it may just go south in a production environment. So those are really the quick overview that we've experienced with our clients in considering hosted and cloud solutions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Byron. So, let's now. Well, really, if I think that the new now the speaker from this is an amazing company. I think only the name of the company, it's for me, it's perfect to describe what they are doing. Really, I told this idea to Dan Brown, the founder and the CEO of the company. Interactive intelligence, okay?
That's me.
And we have here Ian Nevin from London, who is the manager of the Consultants Liaison Program. So Ian take care of a group of crazy men named consultants. But really, this company is really very, very innovative. They are also providing both solutions on-premise and solutions on the cloud. But this is okay. Sorry. And really, I would like to know from Ian why interactive intelligence is offering, and which is really his bid, no? What will you do in the future? What are you doing, no? There is a company, they are providing customer interaction centers on-premise or on cloud. So it's a company that provides services on the cloud, but it's not a carrier. It's a company that develops technology, that develops solutions. Thank you, Ian, to be here today.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I need to do my presentation after that wonderful introduction, Augustine. I'll just say goodbye now. Thank you very much, and adios. But I will flesh out a few things, but thank you very much to Augustine for those very, very kind words. I do have a presentation which I'm not the most technical person in the world. I'm not sure how we actually get to that. Oh, it's PowerPoint will be okay. So yeah, just to introduce myself a little bit, as Augustine said, I work for a company called Interactive Intelligence. I my remit covers Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And we have a very strong focus in working with consultants, people like you, all over the world. I have a counterpart in North America called Marsha Bailey, who some of the American folks may be familiar with, who does an awesome job. Thank you. And also I have counterparts in Japan and Australia, and that's how serious we take consultants. And our view is that we are a disruptive, innovative technology, and I'll go through that slightly now. My first question is, does anybody in the audience speak German? Ein bisschen. Okay, well that's good. Because to Augustine's point, he mentioned when we came in, the fact that this is really a global type initiative now, and things are moving across country borders. And I've just put up, to show you, one of the ads that we did in Contact Center World, which was a show last week in Berlin. And this brings together all of the major customers across Europe. And this, it was interesting that Augustine gave us this title because this was our major focus for the event. And for those of you who don't speak German, and I'm one of them, I'll translate that for you. It's basically asking you, should you go cloud or should you go premise? And it's quoting, and apologies to Shakespeare, it's quoting one of England's famous playwrights who said, to be or not to be, in Hamlet. He's questioning whether you should go cloud or whether you should go premise. And I'm going to try and answer that. I'm not a consultant myself. I've dealt with a lot of consultants over the years. I know how difficult the job is. So I will try and be as unbiased as possible, but I will have to give you some credentials, I think. And I think with every good consultant, they have to show their worth initially. So these are the pros and cons of cloud versus premise. Whether you bring the information internally and you keep it within your system, which is a premise type proposal, all the data is handled internally and you have a dedicated IT staff that looks after it. On the other hand, when you go to cloud, you have the opportunity of reducing that headcount, which in fact may a problem be culturally in some organizations as well. But you don't have any requirement for infrastructure. And also, the cost benefits change as well, because you move from what we call a CapEx, a capital expenditure model, to an operating expenditure model. It's paid monthly. And that can help a lot of your clients out with particular scenarios where they're stuck from moving from one technology to another and they need to release that capital. So they're basically the pros and cons of how we look at cloud versus premise. Just really coming back to my credentials and why Augustine asked me to speak about this. Interactive Intelligence is a company that has been in existence since 1994. We've got around about 1,800 employees now, and very thankfully we've seen a tremendous growth in the last year, almost 34% year-on-year growth. And the reason for that is the final point, which is we don't just offer a cloud or a premise version, we offer both, or you can offer both between the two, so you get a hybrid approach. So I can comment on cloud, I can comment on premise, I'll try and keep as unbiased as I possibly can. But this is why you're seeing that growth with the company, because we are not dictating what we should offer the customers. The customer is driving us, and the customer is asking for more and more cloud-based solutions, to the point that last year over 50% of our deals went through the cloud, because that's the way the market is moving. You can see the customers here is a wide variety of customers, and to Byron's point, which is a very good point, when you go to any vendor who's offering a cloud solution, the first thing that you must vigorously test is have they done it before and what references do they get. So this is what we've done with premise-based customers. This is the people who've taken that as a service, what we call a CAS service or a software on demand service. All these people went down the cloud route. And you can see that that is a lot of people who are now taking up cloud. The question that I wanted to drill down on is, why did they take cloud? Why did they choose to go to premise rather than cloud, which I think is at the forefront of our question today. And the cloud drivers that we're seeing, certainly, and we have vision of both, is the increased flexibility that offers the customer, the ability to scale up or scale down on seasonal demands of how many agents, I'm speaking specifically in the contact center space, how many people you'd actually like to use. We have a customer in the United States called Intuit who are very much focused on the tax year in America, and they scale from several hundred to tens of thousands of agents at that point, because the tax year comes to a certain point in April, and they have to address that. And you can do that with cloud-based computing. Again, the minimal capital expense, you don't have to outlay too much initially, and the reduced IT requirements. All these are drivers which are moving from a very tactical to a strategic decision that IT are now making. So there are concerns over cloud computing, which we need to get out on the table. The issue of security, predictability of the solution, and what choice and flexibility you have. But we're finding more and more that as companies move, as to Craig's point, more and people adopt the Salesforce or the Amazon or the iTunes type model and get comfortable with the cloud-based solution. They realize that actually having your data in the cloud is as safe as having it on a storage device in your premise. So to Augustine's point, we also don't push anybody directly down the totally cloud route. We have a variety of flavor of options. So it's not just a one option that you can take, it's a flavor, whether you have your solution in the cloud, whether you have some equipment on premise. It always comes down to what I said before, which is the customer driven requirement, and that's what you need to be aware of, and that's what's driving the market. Again, if they want to go to a hybrid solution, they can put that CIC server wherever they like in the database. And this really is coming to the end and really summing up what's driving the market and showing the growth. And a lot of people are focused on cloud. You've seen it across markets, but IDC, one of the leading analysts in the world, actually, we deal with them in EMEA, but specifically in the world, they're saying that growth is exponential on cloud, and this is the way that IT spending will go, as you can see from this graph. So I thought, rather than me say much more about it, what we did do is an event in London. It was a year or two ago right now, but we got some ideas from consultants about what they thought of the cloud. I'd like to share it with you guys now. Can I operate that video? Is there any way you can do it on PowerPoint?
The video is
There's a video on here. Can you show it? Maybe you can't.
Maybe you have to put it in diapo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this. Should work now. If you click on it.
Is there any sound for this thing? No.
Should we sound?
Yeah. Oh, it's
About it.
I can
After all, in our day-to-day lives, we have a cloud experience with our social channel, and I think inevitably for enterprise technology, a cloud is the future. In the clients that we deal with, some are banks and they have an aversion to the cloud, but the vast majority are looking for the fastest possible passage to a cloud-based future.
Cloud computing is a vast and diverse area, but I think it's fair to say that for me, when I think of cloud computing, I think of it as a new distribution channel for computing resources and applications. And as such, it's not going to take over the world. It's just another option for companies. And it's very important for suppliers in the market to offer a cloud distribution model for their solution, but not at the exclusion of traditional or premise-based models.
Cloud computing is quite interesting because, in principle, we've had cloud computing for many, many years. In fact, the original public switch telephone network was in fact a cloud, and we connected to it and used that as a utility, as a service. So, and indeed, early computing was centralized, hosted, and we've done terminals. So we've sort of gone full circle and moved unified comms and desktop solutions into hosted cloud-based environments. So they're very much with us and growing day by day.
We're seeing it's an opportunity for us. We work with a lot of contact centres and we also have our own contact centre business. In the past, we've had to have on-premises solutions, and that's now becoming inflexible from the way that we work. So actually the cloud solutions are the way that we're looking for in the future. Because of the flexibility, the on-demand capability is one of the attractive things that we can see cloud vendors offering that on-premises only vendors are not delivering to us.
Yeah, so in terms of the cloud opportunity, this is obviously a big growth area. It's also a big growth area for many vendors that are in that space. I think that the biggest opportunity lies in the private cloud space at this time. But I also think that it will be important to actually take the channel on that journey in terms of what that means for them, what the implications are, and how they can adapt some of their business models to work with the cloud in the future.
Cloud computing is going to change how we do an awful lot of things in the world of contact centres. With the current climate, cost is king. People really have a great deal of uncertainty about where they want to go, what they're going to do, what their market sector is going to look like, what their client size is going to look like. The ability to flex and change is going to be one of the predicting factors, but also the ability to test different technologies.
Well, I think it's absolutely the biggest thing to happen for a long time. I think organizations of all sizes are realizing that the ability to turn on and off as required.
So, I mean, that goes on. In the interest of time, I'll shorten that. But that was your counterparts in the UK expressing their views. And clearly, there is a big, big enthusiasm about that, not just in the UK or Spain, but globally about how we're going to drive this. And I thought I'd just wrap up by giving a quick sanity check on why we see what is driving this and what the challenges are. And a lot of the companies that we come across who are moving to this cloud solution, it comes down to, again, customer driven and the resources that they have available. And the lack of resources in specific, the lack of resources to build that infrastructure, the lack of resources specifically in IT, and the technical know-how in terms of how to flex those out. And all of that comes with the cloud. You can hand that off to the vendor or the operator. And of course the financial constrictions, it kind of opens up, and we're seeing this a lot in certain markets in the UK, in Germany and France, that it opens up that whole debate on whether you can go to procurement and you can spend that money because you moved it from one budget to another. So in summary, again, to cloud or not to cloud, unfortunately this is a consultant answer, so I forgive myself for doing this, but there's no real answer. It really depends on what your customer wants. However, if they are looking at scaling up and down on a regular basis, they want to bring together a number of sites, they have a lot of applications they want to bring on stream very, very quickly, then cloud is a great solution for them. You know, it increases that flexibility, you get rapid deployment, and it frees up that financial model. So that about concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm quite happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Ian. Let's wait questions for the debate. Let me also introduce now another consultant, George Mokbak. George is Lebanese. He has office in Paris, Dubai, and Beirut. He's also founder of an association of technological professionals, IT professionals, French Lebanese IT professionals. He has a lot of experience in Middle East and in Europe, leading a large number of projects. And I want to say that George is very passionate and has strong ideas. Thank you for being here, George.